We did ass. What is up, ladies and gents? I'm the Guitarist562 and I do video game guides. Currently, I am trying to show you guys which is better, Sacred Ground in the game Bless Unleashed or Signs of Dark. So for this specific boss, I'm gonna use Sacred Ground with Empowered Prayers. If you don't know what that is, Sacred Ground summons a body circle that appears at your current position and remains for 20 seconds. Basically, in a nutshell, it's 10% extra attack power. That's all I gotta know. Empowered Prayers makes it into an obnoxiously sized circle. Now, people are gonna say don't use this, and it really just depends on your lineup. For example, we don't have a Crusader in this lineup, but we have two mages. When they're amplified, the Sacred Ground affects their attacks. So that's why people are not going to be too happy about it. But, you know, if they're not amplified, it gives them a 10% attack buff. And that's where it gets kind of tricky because on the one hand, a Crusader will give you a buff that lasts for about a minute. But if you have no Crusaders in your party that have the attack buff, then you could definitely use a Priest, especially if there's only a Nope Mage. If there's no Crusader, then you're free to use that as much as you want. Because a ring of that size, there's no excuse to not be able to be in that ring versus the Consigned to Darkness ring is much shorter and it relies on the boss being stationary. Alright, so the second good thing about Sacred Ground is maxing out Crescent Moon and being able to use a move called Banishment. When you use Banishment, you can blow it up twice. That's my number one asked question. And they always ask me, how do you blow up your circle? Well, the way you do it is simple. It's RNG. You just keep pressing the B button until it happens. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Like, look, I'm pressing B right here. Nothing. The last perk I would say is the fact that your heals are a lot thicker on a Sacred Ground because of the 10% attack buff that Consigned to Darkness just doesn't give you. Now we're going to switch it up. We're going to use Consigned to Darkness instead because it still gives you a 10% extra damage attacking the boss. The difference is this goes on the boss and not so much on the players. Consigned to Darkness increases the received damage by monsters by 10%. What's better, 10% attack buff or received damage of 10%? Honestly, I feel like it's kind of the same thing, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. Alright, so for this boss, we're going to be using, like I said, the Consigned to Darkness, and it follows the boss from where he's standing. So you don't exactly have to place it really. As long as the boss is stationary, the Consigned to Darkness is going to follow him. Alright, so I'm standing over here, and I'm going to use Consigned to Darkness, and boom, it just goes right on the boss. And the entirety that he has it, not only am I inflicting damage on the boss because he's standing on the actual purple ring, but he's also receiving 10% extra damage. Now, if you're thinking about composition lineups, if you pair the Priest with a Nightwind Ranger, Mark does 35% extra incoming damage. Now, plus your 10% Consigned to Darkness passive with the Whispering Shadows, sorry, and you're going to be doing 45% extra damage, and that's basically the beauty of it. Alright, so there you go, guys. That is Consigned to Darkness with the Whispering Shadows. So Consigned to Darkness summons a circle of shadows that appears at your current position and remains for 20 seconds, dealing damage over time to all affected enemies. The cooldown is every 30 seconds. That only does damage over time. It's not like the other one where it gives you 10% attack buff immediately. You need to have not only the active but the passive as well to have the perk of affected enemies increase the received damage by 10%. If you don't have both skills, then you don't get the passive ability. So for example, Sacred Ground doesn't get Empowered Prayers unless it's equipped. I know that may seem like common sense, but a lot of people miss that. They'll try to have, you know, Whispering Shadow. They'll try to have Sacred Ground with Whispering Shadows. I will say though that the damage over time plus the ring is also a nice touch. So here what we did was we put Sacred Ground and Consigned to Darkness. You don't get the 10% extra received damage, but you do get the 10% attack buff provided by Sacred Ground. Oh, here's a heal. And by using Sacred Ground with Consigned to Darkness, you may not get the 10% inflicted received damage towards monsters. However, you get the damage over time plus a 10% attack buff, and it's really good for solo farming. So if you're out in the open world and maybe you're on Crescent Moon, that's a really good benefit to have both of those going off on mobs to help you clear the ads a lot quicker, because you can also do double banishment plus you get the damage over time, so you're gonna clear ads a lot easier to clear mobs that a lot of people just haven't thought of. But alright you guys, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, that way you can be notified of when my next video is gonna be out. And on the top left is going to be my most recent video if you want to keep up to date with my latest video. On the bottom left is going to be the video that's going to be more catered towards you. And lastly, if you haven't already, please follow the socials, Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, which is going to be the Guitarist562. And the last thing I want to note is that I do have 2 other channels, which is going to be Tech Tips and it's going to be Tube Tips. If you want to learn how to make a YouTube channel, I'm going to be uploading 1 video a week to that channel, which is going to be called Tube Tips, and another one to Tech Tips to just showcase the technology of the upcoming year. But as always, I want to thank you guys for watching. Stay blessed.